How's it going, guys? My name's Shane, and welcome back to the Horror Basement. Today we're going to be talking about C.H.U.D, which is a 1984 horror movie set in New York City. Now, C.H.U.D is actually an acronym which stands for Cannibalistic, Humanoid, Underground Dwellers. The main premise of this movie is that there is toxic waste being dumped and stored under the ghetto part of New York, which of course was Soho at the time, but now Soho is like the bougie part of New York. But back in the 80s, that was the shitty part of town, and there was a big homeless problem. And this chemical waste is causing the underground homeless population of New York City to transform into these radioactive monsters called C.H.U.Ds. Now, this movie is somewhat unconventional because it doesn't have one real main character. There's a few characters that we follow throughout the movie. There's George Cooper, who is a photographer who took pictures for a story on the homeless population. And then there is his girlfriend, Lauren, who's a model. And then there's the police captain of this district, Captain Bosch. And Bosch actually teams up with the guy who runs the local soup kitchen named AJ to look into the disappearances of these homeless people that live underground. Now, with this being, with the title like Cannibalistic, Humanoid, Underground Dwellers, and this being more of a B movie than like a big budget film, you would expect that there would be little attention given to developing these characters and the other myriad of characters we follow throughout the movie, and more time dedicated to the creature effects and the gore and all the stuff that horror movie people enjoy watching. But this movie actually kind of surprised me because I was going into it looking for that kind of like, oh, this is a B movie, it's mid-80s, it's going to be schlocky, real gory, that kind of thing. But actually, you don't see very much of the monsters in this, or the C.H.U.Ds in this movie. Now, whether that comes down to a choice on the part of the filmmakers or just a limitation of the budget and the limitation of the effects, that's not to be known. But instead, it really focuses on developing the characters. We spend a lot of time, not as much in straight horror scenes as we do, learning more and more about the various folds of all these characters' personalities and how all their stories are interwoven into this conflict that's happening. And also, this movie is somewhat interesting because it has a political message as well. Now, you would think that radioactive waste turning homeless people into slightly more scary Scooby-Doo villains would not be the movie where you'd attempt to make your political statement. But this movie, more so than about being monsters eating people, is about mistrust of the bureaucratic establishment, because this was during the Reagan era, and the fact that the government and the police weren't doing anything to fix or help with the homeless problem that was back in the 80s a big problem in major cities like New York, and continues to be to this day, honestly. So yeah, I was kind of taken aback by just how much time is dedicated to like character development and like long dialogue scenes. I think it's like 40 minutes into the movie after the first time we see like a C.H.U.D hand reach out and grab someone in like the opening credits. But after that, it's like 40 minutes into the movie before we really see another monster or anything violent happens. Yeah, that being said, I actually really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this film. It's a good 80s time capsule. Like, this movie is aggressively like 80s and aggressively like seedy 80s New York. And despite the fact that with the limited exposure to the CHUDs themselves, some of the scenes with them were pretty effective. It had some good gore effects. Um, and that, and I just like the style of everything being like practical, how it was in the 80s before CGI took over. So even though the CHUDs don't look that great, they're still done with practical effects, so they're actually there and they're interacting with the actors in the few scenes that they do. Yes, overall, I am going to recommend this movie. Kind of an off the wall one. You know, you're just gonna have to, I guess, sit down and let the movie wash over you and see if you enjoy it as much as I did. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you have any recommendations of other lesser known 80s horror movies like this that you want me to review, leave a suggestion down in the comments. And otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.